This episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Blue Bridge Games. For the games and gifts you won't find anywhere else, head to Grand Rapids, Michigan's friendliest local game store, Blue Bridge Games. Blue Bridge Games carries an extensive line of board games, card games, role-playing tabletop games, Magic the Gathering, and more. Stop into their storefront on East Fulton or shop with them online at bluebridgegames.com.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler. So you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because it's a good name. It's not a doctor. Look, this show is really hard to make jokes about, so yes, I'm repeating that joke because Chief Couch Potato Privilege TM, and this is a drama and there's no jokes. I'll try harder for season 4. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Castbox, and Amazon Music, basically wherever you get your podcasts, to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including, but not limited to, Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Altered Carbon, The Orville, Outlander, Westworld, Fuller House, Schitt's Creek, and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Doctor Who, The 100, Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, This Is Us, Charmed, Riverdale, the American Horror Story franchise series panel. New name. We'll talk about Season 1 of American Horror Stories. The DCTU series will talk Season 4 of Black Lightning. The Breaking Better series panel will discuss Season 5 of Better Call Saul. And the Star Trek 50 Plus series will discuss Season 1 of Deep Space Nine. We'll be launching new panels covering Call the Midwife, The Animaniacs, Killing Eve, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Gods, Grey's Anatomy, Cobra Kai, Peaky Blinders, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, A Discovery of Witches, and The Hauntings of Hill House and Bly Manor. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends. We'll cry bazinga for Big Bang Theory. We'll dive deep into the fantasy world of the magicians. We'll navigate the witty political satire of Parks and Recreation. We'll become psychos for Psych. We'll go where everybody knows your name with Cheers. We hope you'll be listening when we talk about Frasier, and we'll know that's what she said when we talk about The Office, both from the UK and the USA. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in whatever we're calling these times. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you've any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Keep it constructive, though. This isn't our first lead surgery, you know. Today, we're around the water cooler and continuing our catching up series centered on a multi-season medical drama based upon a 2013 South Korean series of the same name. The show is The Good Doctor, and this is the third of a 4-part series in which CPU catches up on this program, which airs its primary run on the ABC network. In this episode, part 3 of this series, we're discussing Season 3, which aired on ABC from September 23rd, 2019 to March 30th, 2020, with a total of 20 episodes. We will discuss Season 4 in the next episode of our Catching Up series, at which point we will be officially caught up. For now. To remind the listener, The Good Doctor follows Sean Murphy, played by Freddie Highmore, a young autistic surgeon with savant syndrome from the mid-sized city of Casper, Wyoming, where he had a troubled past. He relocates to San Jose, California to work at the prestigious San Jose St. Bonaventure Hospital. The show is produced by Sony Pictures Television and ABC Studios in association with production companies Shoresy Productions, 3AD, and Enter Media. David Shore serves as showrunner, and Daniel Day Kim is an executive producer for the show. Antonia Thomas, Hill Harper, Christina Chang, Richard Schiff, Will Yun Lee, Fiona Gubelman, and Paige Sparra currently star in the show, which recently finished airing its 4th season and at the time of recording is about to premiere its 5th. The Good Doctor is a show that was requested for discussion and beloved by some of our resident couch potatoes, namely Eddie, Micah, Jessica, and Jared, all of whom have reconvened around the water cooler today, ready to discuss Season 3 of this tale about a surgeon with autism and those in his life and at his work that would support him and each other. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of this series through Season 3 and may discuss sensitive plot points. So for those of you who have not watched The Good Doctor and plan to do so at some point, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel. How are you?
Hey. Hello. Hey, Kylie.
Hey, are you ready to talk about Season 3 in our catching up series?
Mm-hmm. The water is cool. Let's do it.
The water is cool?
You know, if the water cooler's doing its job.
Oh!
You stay 6 feet apart from
that
the
was so smooth. It flew over my head, and I made that part of our feature. But that's cool, Micah. Well, what I guess I will then do, awkwardly segueing, is to do the standard CPU character question, which changes with each show we do. Because we're doing a catching up series, and we're going season by season, I have tweaked the character question yet again, and to ask you how you feel about Season 3 upon your completion of watching or rewatching it, as it were. Are you ready, panel?
Yes, indeed.
Bring it on.
Okay. Vocal affirmations are good, but here we go. Thanks. It's a podcast. So how would you rate your interest in Season 3 along the Season 3 version of The Good Doctor character question? Would you say you love this show? It's gripping, intellectually stimulating, teaches you a lot about human nature, and encourages you to grow even when you already feel as if you know yourself and the world as much as you're going to know them, like Dr. Sean Murphy. Do you care about this show deeply, but also feel that your soft spot for it may otherwise blind you to its glaring flaws, some of which cannot be ignored or defended, no matter how hard you try? You find yourself giving it more and more chances to prove itself, even when those chances are not necessarily deserved or go against boundaries created by your personal set of TV watching standards, like Dr. Aaron Glassman. Have you been reluctantly won over by this show? At first, you found the premise extremely problematic in light of the fact that the writers chose to depict a surgeon with autism, but also with savant syndrome, in order for the very idea of a surgeon with this disability to be convincing, or because it feels as if it's too much of a stretch from non-fiction or real life. But Freddie Highmore, that is Dr. Sean Murphy, is so impressive, you can't help but find your initial judgment shifting as you continue watching. Plus, your affection for the supporting characters also continues to grow and may have reached new heights this season, like Dr. Neil Melendez. Is the Sean character a bright spot because you love watching how he learns to relate to and to adapt to his surroundings, not only in the hospital but outside of it? Also, let's face it, you shipped the Sean and Carly ship big time this season, like Dr. Carly Lever. Is the Sean character a bright spot and you watch this program for him and him alone? You love the surrogate family dynamic that develops between Sean, Glassy, and Leah, but let's face it, you're also shipping the Sean and Leah ship this season and beyond, like Leah DeLallo. Do you think this show has amazing potential despite its shaky foundations, and are more than willing to see it through as long as the series devotes ample time to developing how these doctors balance their personal and hospital lives, whether or not Sean is at the center of either? Plus, you love how this show empowers its female characters, like Dr. Audrey Lim. Do you find yourself particularly taken in by the Sean Murphy character, but also find that you need an extraordinary amount of patience and understanding to see the benefit and or strengths of the show, no matter how much you try to see the positive side of any problem or equation, like Dr. Claire Brown? Do you enjoy the show well enough when it actually stops to focus on someone besides Sean Murphy? You like the ensemble and the complex characters surrounding him strike you as more interesting interesting than Sean himself, if you have anything to say without sugarcoating about it, though you are also optimistic that any of its perceived problems have solutions that can fix the issues, like Dr. Morgan Resnick. Do you like the show best when it gets to the point? You like the main characters well enough, but the show is always at its best when it does not skirt reality and sticks to the cold hard facts, the mature viewpoints, in your opinion. Otherwise, you would do just as well not to watch it, like Dr. Alex Park. Have you given the show a chance, but it hasn't done enough to earn your confidence long term, no matter how winning the ideas and premise behind the story are? Also, you're naturally more pragmatic in your television viewing and are not prepared to fully invest in a program that does not seem to see what you perceive to be a lack of a potentially engaging story over the course of several seasons. To that end, you only checked in on the show a bit in season 3, like Allegra Aoki, or as the show has progressed, you've surprised yourself by how much confidence you've developed in it, and given your status as former interim hospital president who sacrificed his position to save Sean from termination, spoiler, you've become less preoccupied in your ambition and have therefore devoted more focus to the show and have less general hatred, though you will waste no time still in exploiting its flaws to make your point if it comes to it, because it's not like your initial negative opinion changed overnight. Like Dr. Marcus Andrews. Who would like to start?
Man, if that's our list for this season, next season is it's gonna be a trip. With the spoiler, not spoiler, the added new residential interns that there's quite a bit of. So. But since I have decided to bogart the mic, I might as well do something productive with it.
I agreed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Micah, returning once again.
Hi, Micah, returning once again.
For this season, and I knew this was what I was going to be for this season when we did the last podcast, I am squarely in the top spot, Sean Murphy. This season, I think, they had some of their best plot lines. I think just through the arc of Sean and Carly's relationship and Sean and Leah's dynamic and the different things that he gets into, I challenged myself a lot of my views of autistic people in general, and saying is it weird that this plotline is happening? Why do I even ask if it's weird, and introspective things like that. So it was full of wonder and fascinating things, and also some juicy gossip as we will get into.
Last time you were Sean and a little bit of Audrey Lim.
I'm still love Audrey as a character, not resonating with her quite as much this time around.
Fair enough. Welcome back, Micah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to jump in second this time because I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I'm very excited about our conversation today. Last time I felt a little bit guilty about the fact that generally speaking...
What is your name?
My name is Jared, and I have a bad memory.
Hi, Jared, and I have a bad memory.
Hey, Kylie. Last time I felt a little bit guilty about the fact that generally speaking, when I love my shows, I just love my shows. That's all there is to it. And so I generally pick the top spot. So last time I did Sean Murphy and a little bit of Aaron Glassman, because I do believe that there are shows that I probably could be a little bit more critical with. But in this particular case, this season, nearly every episode was thrilling to me. I think they upped their game in so many ways this season. I loved every bit of it. There was one particular episode, namely the last two, that I loved so much. I felt that they were just as good, if not better, than any Grey's Anatomy episode that they've had out there, which is a big deal. Just those particular ones, but just really great. So I'm just Sean Murphy. That's it. I love it. Any issues that there may be is just like a human. We all have flaws, so let it be. That's the way I look at it. That's me.
All right. Welcome back, Jared.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jess.
Hi, Jess.
So this time, because I'm not gonna lie, after the last podcast, I was kind of like, I don't think I can do anymore. But I stuck through. I gave it the old college try.
Yeah, last time I'm gonna interject because you had this specific quote of being a sprinkling of Glassy as well as a little bit of Alex Park.
This time, I am true blue Neil Melendez. I didn't necessarily think that the show was problematic. I just had trouble being won over by it. However, this season, even though it was really hard for me for personal reasons, grew on me a whole lot. I learned to love more of the other characters that I didn't give a chance to before. And I think some growth was amazing this season, so I'm going to stick through with Neil Melendez.
All right, welcome back, Jess.
Excuse me, Kylie. May I ask Jessica a quick question by any chance? Is that okay if I do that real quick?
I will allow it.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. Jessica, I'm just curious. So just so we get a full understanding of your reasoning in terms of being Neil Melendez, do you feel like your opinion, that place of being Neil, has more to do with some of your own personal things that you struggled with, as opposed to what the show actually is? Or what is the understanding there?
So it's not like my personal things were just some things that were happening to some of the characters this season. Not to put my personal life out there, but I've lost my mom to, funny enough, pancreatic cancer. So there were some personal things that made this season a little hard for me. But I don't know. I don't know if I just watched the first couple seasons not in the best headspace, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. But something in season 3 just kind of like pulled me back in, and now I'm, loving watching the character growth, loving seeing everything thrive. And also, the reason I said there was no problematic is I feel like, to the best of the TV show's ability, they're broadcasting autism in a way that is true in some cases. So for me, it was never problematic in that aspect. I just had a hard time being like hook, lined, and sinkered into the show, and this season kind of brought me back to the love. So,
well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
hi, guys.
Hi.
This is Eddie.
Hi, Eddie.
So I am Sean, Dr. Sean Murphy, for this season. And it's not just because of how he has grown in this season. It's how all the characters have grown. That's mostly why I'm picking Sean, because this season, definitely, I feel like in any show with the season 3, you're getting to the point where you're like, either you're going to have to really make your fans happy to keep them going, or you're about to fall off the bandwagon. And I feel like The Good Doctor, they took their assignment and they did it very, very well.
Last time you were Neil.
I know. I wasn't a fan of season 2, so I needed something to kick it, and this season gave it to me. So, yeah. And we also got to expand a lot on one of my favorite characters and see her deal with, again, without any of us getting personally, I've also lost my mother. And sometimes how we react when we lose our mother or a loved one in general isn't exactly how we think we would react, but that's exactly how we react. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but how the show started showing that, I really respected and I could relate to.
All right. Welcome back, Eddie. And
we got 3 Seans.
We do, and I'm about to break the streak. But
There we go. I knew it.
I knew
it.
Listen, don't you prejudge the stuff. I will explain. First of all, my name is Kylie. I mentioned that I both moderate and participate on this panel, as is often the case. Last time, I was Neil. This time, I think I'm going to be actually a combination of Glassy and Neil. I'm still not
Would you say you're a sprinkling of Glassy?
No, I would actually say I'm a sprinkling of Neil and more Glassy. Mm-hmm. Season 3 was, to me, a vast improvement over the previous 2 seasons. I agree that there is definitely a forward momentum, that the characters all collectively grew, that they really nurtured the relationships, that they really played with the dynamics. The romancing stuff was all, I was living for that. There was so much of it going on. I was like, but it was tasteful and not in the on-call room like another hospital show that we frequently compare this to. Okay, it was more of like traditional, emotional, romantical kind of stuff with a little physical thrown in because TV. But generally speaking, I really enjoyed the forward momentum of this season. I probably watched season 3 faster than the previous 2 seasons because I am feeling myself hooked now. I still maintain that I'm a little concerned it took this long, but here I am, and I'm ready to talk about season 3 of The Good Doctor with all of my lovely co-panelists. So now that's what we're going to do. This season, we had a lot of fun percolations in the plot. We had a love triangle with Sean Murphy, Carly Lever, played by Jessica Nicole, who you might have recognized from Fringe. That was like her big past prior role. And Leah. You had all the surgical residents rotating into first surgeries. You had Neil with Audrey, but Audrey got to be chief of surgery, and they couldn't handle that, so they were together and then they weren't. You had percolations with Neil and Claire. You had Claire and Morgan buddy copping the thing. You had like a bunch of interesting medical cases. You had Glassy getting married to Debbie. We need to talk about Debbie. I've got feelings. There's all sorts of... And they, even though Marcus sacrificed his position, Dr. Andrews, last season to save Sean from being terminated from the hospital, Audrey convinced him to come back and just be the surgeon that he is, the brilliant surgeon that he is. He agreed. Actually was one of the most positive developments because I've never liked his character more than I have this season. So let's talk about it. The Good Doctor Season 3. Tell me what you liked and what you didn't like, if anything.
Wow, that's what I didn't like, what I didn't like.
I start broad and I work it down. Start broad, work it down.
I definitely like the character development of this season. I'll say that. I guess I'll start with my favorite character. She's become my favorite character, Claire. Claire is by far my favorite character. I love her in this season. I don't know. I think I like how they're just making her... every time she gets like cut down, especially by Morgan. I mean, their relationship really started to blossom in season 2. We didn't really exactly know what it was going to be, but now it's almost like it's a secret relationship, almost like not a romantic clearly, but like it's a secret relationship where they don't want anybody to know that they're friends, but they really would do anything for each other. And I kind of like that dynamic of each other because in the end, they just feel like they're competing with each other. And they have to because that's just how this environment is. But even when Morgan cuts down Claire, I love how she grows from it. And she takes from it. And she's just trying to be the best that she can be. And I hate to dive into it so soon, but I think the reason that she's like that is because her ultimate thing is she doesn't want to be her mother. She wants to be anything on this, like, God's green earth but her mother. I mean, it's very powerful how I probably went through half a box of Kleenex. I want to say this first, 4 episodes of season 3, I think I've cried more during than, any show I can think of in a really long time. I cried so much in season 3. But how they killed off her mom, I mean, it's not shocking, but
Spoiler.
Finding that...
Spoiler.
Oh, yeah. Spoiler, how they killed her off in a car accident with her being drunk is... I mean, we're not shocked of... I think what, put the kicker into it is that she was drinking a bottle of champagne that she found from her daughter. And, just to know that... And I know she did, and I love how they didn't even play on it. You just thought of the emotion that she ultimately killed her mother is just powerful. It's insane. Insanely powerful. Even how she got rid of her ashes is, even another growing moment. I also love how the fact that Morgan, she tries real hard to be nice, but she seems like she still has to be the bitchy one. Are we allowed to say that? I'm probably going to get edited out.
No, bitchy's fine. Bitchy
okay,
is one of the
good. She's the bitchy
ones.
one. She feels like that's her role and that she has to play it. But again, with all of them, she's nice when she has to be. But
I liked that when you were talking about their relationship earlier, I think, and they kind of addressed this a little bit, that Morgan came in and was like, no, we're going to establish the order around here. And it didn't end up being what she thought it would be. She did have to eat some humble pie after her beginnings. But everyone did kind of settle into their roles, more or less, on the surgical team. But then when Claire's mom dies, she breaks bad a little bit, starts acting quite the fool. And so Morgan was now having to pick up the slack of being the heartfelt humanitarian bedside manner expert. And you could tell she was a little bit annoyed by it.
Well, and even to piggyback off of what Eddie said, not to bring up losing parents, but it showed the raw reality too. Claire went from being, as she referred to herself, the soft one, as Micah just brought up, kind of reckless and doing whatever, her dentist appointment, quote unquote, when she couldn't help Sean. I like that it brought a realness to just how raw those emotions are and how much it can affect your personal self. you go from being one way to the other, and then you come back to your roots. Just maybe a little tougher, like we saw with Claire.
I have nothing to add. Go ahead, Jared.
I'm in agreement with Eddie in terms of the character development was so great. I feel like every character, other than Audrey, I'm not sure if I can recall how much they got into Audrey's past, but definitely I can recall most of the other characters just kind of digging into their stories just enough that they just start to grow on you. So in terms of the Claire thing with her mother, there was no indication that she was going to fall off the bandwagon again like that, at least that I can remember anyway. So it was a bit of a surprise to me. It wasn't. I mean, I was shocked at that moment because I really thought that maybe with her coming to live with her daughter and some of the inroads that they were making in their relationship, that I guess maybe I was hoping that would work out, but at the same time, it makes for good writing, I guess. The fact that she died right as they were trying to build their relationship back up, and then Claire had to deal with that, thrust into that situation. But I think it worked out okay. I just would have liked to see that develop a little bit more, like maybe seeing her struggling with the alcoholism while she was there. And maybe she did. I think there maybe was one time, actually, now that I mentioned it.
It was very subtly hinted at. It was actually kind of unusual for the show, the way they built this sequence, because Claire's mom was living with Claire, and it was really supposed to be a temporary get back on her feet. And what she tells Claire, and what they kind of share as they're talking to each other, is that they're each seeing a therapist, sometimes separately, sometimes jointly, and you know that mom is bipolar or has bipolar disorder and is taking medication, but there is definitely this, the way Sharon Leal plays it, and of course she's from Boston Public and Supergirl and a bunch of other television projects, she's had quite a resume. The way she sort of plays it is she has these manic episodes in the episode while Claire is trying to say, you have a week and you need to get your crap together. Well, now you can stay for a couple more weeks. And so you don't necessarily know that she's drinking. What you do know is that she's fluctuating. She's really not completely balanced or regulated with whatever treatment she's getting. So it's almost the sense that she's on a precipice. But I think if they had showed that card a little too much or more than they had, then the champagne bottle as it was wouldn't have been as impactful as it turned out to be.
Also the fact that they took it a step farther, because I'm sure when she put the bottle behind the thing, I think everyone who was watching that episode probably collectively was like, the mom's gonna drink it later and all the work will be dashed. I don't think people would have expected them to then take that the step further and have that lead to her death, which, as Jess talked about, it's kind of unspoken. That's the emotion there, is that she is somewhat responsible because she wanted to keep the champagne for her first stage surgery, and a selfish decision on her, which it really isn't selfish. It's just self-oriented in a valuable way, but it led to that. And yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a bit of a trope that once things are looking up for some characters, or once they promise each other that after this last job, then we'll go to Tahiti. I hear it's beautiful in Tahiti. Wink, wink.
Hashtag hate is a shield.
But yeah, then that is the episode in which one of them will soon die. But I don't know, this episode didn't feel quite that way, and I think the way that the show comports itself usually, which is that arcs do finish out. One way or another, they do finish out, but this time they very strategically cut one short, and I think overall, the mom's arc getting cut short benefited Claire's arc greatly.
I agree with that, hands down.
I also like that they gave, oh my gosh, my brain just spaced, and
Morgan?
Thank you, Morgan. I was going to call her Medical Kitty again because she reminds me of Kitty from Glee.
Hashtag Medical Kitty, we'll do it.
Hashtag Medical Kitty.
I would like to submit hashtag Medicine Chenoweth if we...
That's too much esotericness. And Jessica has spent the last 2 episodes talking about the Kitty from Glee comparison.
All right, fine.
It's kind of my thing now.
You get the payoff.
But I like that they, in sense, because Morgan, I almost called her Kitty again. Oh my God. Morgan kind of had I don't want to call it a God complex, but she was perfect in her own eyes. And then she gets hit with rheumatoid arthritis and has to have this surgery, and all of a sudden her like perfect, and she even mentioned like she doesn't want to be looked at different. She doesn't want this to be seen as a flaw when she's talking to Glassman about it. Like they gave her an imperfection, which then made me love Morgan Resnick a little bit more because I kind of was on the fence about her. And then the stuff with her mom and then the arthritis, I was like, oh, you're human.
I love
you're
how she goes
robot.
to Glassman like Sean does.
Yes.
It was almost like she goes, well, this works for Sean. Let's see if it works for me.
And you say you don't want to call it a God complex, but really it is the beginning.
It is
of
a God
one.
complex.
It is a God complex.
She's just taken down a few thousand pegs by the fact that she does have this flaw. And then you're absolutely right. We then meet her mother, who's played by Annette O'Toole.
Annette O'Toole!
From the Superman movies and from Smallville. Hello. Very important show in my life.
Yes.
I need my nerd card revoked because you guys said her name with such enthusiasm, and I was like, yeah.
Well, at least you faked it.
Nothing that we have superhero-wise, I think, in TV and movies would be where it was without the work of Smallville. It was an exceptional show. Pretty sure that panel's already been done.
Pretty sure.
But,
You said
Not
you're
even.
gay
She was-
because of Smallville?
Pretty sure that's what, like, nailed it in there. Yep, I'm gay.
Hashtag gay because of Smallville. Great.
All the hashtags are coming out tonight.
The secret hashtag list is gonna be huge on this episode. That's what she said. Ultimately, learning about Mom was very eye-opening, and then also Brother, who's very like Mom, and played by Alan Leach, best known for his role on Downton Abbey. So, a very eye-opening family experience, but I agree with you, Jessica. The Morgan's arc, while I don't consider either Morgan or Claire my favorite characters per se, look, everybody can have different favorite characters, but I do like the fact that paired together, they enhance each other and make each other better and push each other to be better humans. And that is a very interesting friendship to watch, or frenemyship to watch, depending upon the day.
I do want to give since we're on the buddy cop category, I think I mentioned this last season, but it's only grown more so. I love Park and Sean as a team. It's just the best. They just, I don't know what it was about Park that he just like came in straight out of the gate. No doubts, just kind of let Sean do his thing and like learn to work with him. But every time that they're working a case together, I love it.
Park is also super sneaky.
But Park doesn't treat Sean like he has like autism, right? Like Park treats Sean like he's just one of the guys. Like especially when it comes to Sean dating, like he literally asks him questions that any guy or like any friend would ask about. But I mean, then Sean just does Sean and takes it 17 times farther.
Hashtag, was there a parade?
That's brilliant, and I like it.
Do you want to give her a big parade? Or a lackluster parade?
I love how gripped everybody was just listening to all of his stories and just staring at him as he spoke, and it was quite a moment.
Okay, this is a natural segue. Let's talk about this love triangle.
I've been Team Leah for a long time.
Fair enough. Declare.
I also was wooed quite quickly by Leah, but Carly is great. I love her a lot as well.
I just love how much Carly helped Sean grow in a like non-medical human personal. See, Eddie, we're on the same wavelength.
It's literally what I was going to say. Literally the word.
That being said, we're not saying that she's just a plot device.
No, she's not.
I think she was a good character in her own right. I love that she finally did the somewhat of a fourth wall break of calling into question how much extracurricular work talk that they do, because she just like every 5 minutes someone that is not my boyfriend is coming up to me to ask me or tell me about my boyfriend. Guys, can we get some space?
But I like that she helped him grow. Like, I feel like the other characters help him grow as a surgeon and sometimes as a person, yes. However, I feel that she helped him grow in like an intimacy romantic aspect and like helped him see that like touch is normal, like intimacy is normal, having parades and lunch together is normal.
I hate to say this, I don't think normal is the right word.
Not normal, but that's all I can.
I think what she was trying to do is make it seem that he's allowed.
Yes.
To have sex. Yes. He's allowed
it's accessible to
feel intimate. He's allowed, like, people are like, I feel like Sean sometimes feels like, oh, people are saying I can't have this because I can't do it right. Where he can do it right. He just has to be with the right person to do it the way that Sean does, which in actuality is all of us.
Right.
So, I mean, we all have to find the way that we love. We all have to find the person that accepts how we love. So I really loved how that, no, I said love like 30 times. But I really
love.
Love is
Hashtag
love.
love.
Right. I like how the show portrayed that Sean's not loving because he's autistic. He's loving this way because that's how he is. And he just happened to find a person that was willing to do it and deal with how he had to learn how to be intimate.
I love how she had her own insecurities, like the episode with the zebrafish, and I believe the guy's name was John.
If you mean the patient, I don't retain any of these people.
Well,
no offense, they are plot fodder. Feed them into the machine so that the characters we love can develop.
The only reason I bring up his name is because she brought it up, that he wasn't a slide, that he's a human, and that this is why she likes to stay in the lab. Like, you got to see a side of her that kind of, like, explained her and her quirks.
When she, like, freaks out that he's gonna die, and she pretty much is like, Sean, how do you do this on a daily basis? And made him seem like he's the strong person and that he's weak. Yeah, that was pretty.
I liked that. And I like that but because, like, you really never did see her anywhere other than the lab until that episode.
But it's also, they made her vulnerable, and then they showed how Sean could, like, give her the emotion and the affection that she needed, and that he could do that.
So I liked her as a person, but relationship-wise, I don't know, there was just something about me that always was like, but Leah.
There's something about Leah.
There's just something about Leah.
Let me piggyback off of that. I would highly recommend that anybody who loves the show or likes the show rewatch this season again, because I was so glad to watch it a second time, because the first time through, as I thought about these episodes, I felt almost every episode there was an uneasiness in me because I so wanted Leah and Sean together, and I did. I knew that I did. I gave not Claire. What do I want to call her? Claire.
Now that you've done this, I can't remember her name either. What have you done, Jared?
I hate this season. I keep saying Claire, and I mean
Carly.
Carly and Claire. Carly. As much as I liked Carly, I felt uneasy every episode because I was like, I know Leah. When's Leah going to come in? When's Leah going to come back? I know she is. I love her. I want them together. But watching it a second time, maybe it's just because I knew what was going to happen, but literally there were so many feelings inside this. You know, she is one of the most patient people I've ever seen. She's kind. She's sweet. She would be perfect for him. If Leah didn't end up with him, I would still be sad, but I think that they could be great together, and I could live with her and think she could be awesome. But I felt incredibly sad, both for the fact that, well, I felt sad that they broke up, but I was excited at the same time because that means I felt like Leah's coming. And so, yeah, I loved watching the whole relationship, and especially the second time through. Just great. I wish she could have come back, but I guess there's not any really good way for her to be able to continue going here without it being too awkward, I guess.
When the show you're watching has like a very clear-cut one OTP, which is a one true pairing for those who don't know, but then they bring in somebody and the chemistry is just like too good. You're like, oh man. Now, like, I feel like either way, I'm going to be happy, but I'm also going to be sad.
And I just want to say that I couldn't, the idea that so many people tried to get in the middle of the relationship just to help, and I was fine with him helping, but the way that as well as Carly took it, she just, I mean, you could see she had so much emotion. Her facial expressions, like when her eyes welled up with tears, or her face did a certain thing. She was such a good actress in the way that she looked without saying very much at all. But then when she did speak, how she wasn't afraid to be respectful but direct and saying, you know, we don't need your help. Please stay out of it. I was like, whoa, that's good.
See, okay, here's my thoughts. I got thoughts.
What? You?
I know. I would pick Leah over Carly just because Leah, well, A, she came first, and that's kind of what the show led you to believe, and B, she has more of a natural chemistry with Sean that they established very early from moment one. Whereas Carly, as wonderful, nice, and patient as she is, it's definitely a lot of hard work to get to where they need to be as a couple, where they can start theoretically talking about being physical, affectionate, establishing boundaries so that coworkers aren't coming to ask questions. But I had 2 nitpicks for both things because they took me out of the suspension of disbelief. I agree with you, Jared. I love Jessica Nicole's expressions when she would show that she was hurt, that things weren't going a certain way, but you could almost see her steeling herself inwardly to try again, thinking of other things. My problem was some of that went on maybe a little too long and a little too much. Like, I got tired of seeing that expression from her. Like, maybe the revelation, and part of that percolates with the jealousy she shows towards Leah. It felt like it was strung out way too long, except for the fact that here's my other big problem that I felt kind of was a sucker punch in the gut. And I don't know if she was just lying to him or not, but with Leah saying, I can't love you because of your autism. That whole exchange, which pushed Sean to have a very profound emotional response, but at the same time, it felt like something. Leah has a way of, they call her flaky, but it really is, she's afraid of commitment with anyone, not just Sean. And it felt unusually hurtful for her to go for the jugular like that in a moment when he was actually trying to be self-actualized. And I struggled with it because Leah is Leah. That seemed like extreme Leah.
Well, I mean, I think for me, I really appreciate when we can be honest enough to admit what our sincere struggles are. And if in that moment it felt like that's like she couldn't figure out how to say it any other way, because clearly when she was communicating, she was struggling for words. So I would be like that sometimes, where I would do my best to make sure I'm thinking about what I'm saying before I say it. But I would rather kind of, as respectfully as I can, get it out there. And then if I make a mistake, I will be willing to apologize. But I don't think she knew what else to say, like how better to say it. If that was true in that moment, if she felt like this particular issue could very well be a problem in their relationship, it's not necessarily necessary that she had to say it. And obviously it would have hurt him. And so she could have been more aware of that, I suppose. But I just think in our humanity, we recognize that sometimes we're going to say something silly or foolish or unkind to somebody because we're human and because our struggles are real. So we have to learn, we have to grow, we have to forgive and ask for forgiveness. That's the way I see it. So yeah, it definitely was hurtful. I respect that there, and it wasn't the best thing to do. I just think that when we look at a show, if we're looking for it to be as realistic as possible, I feel like that was somewhat realistic in the way that she was feeling in that moment. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, to respond to both of your points, Kylie, and somewhat jump off of Jared for the second part. I do, now that you mentioned, I recall Carly doing the, insecure, shameful sheet against the chest twice in one episode. That's pushing the envelope. By the second point, I would have respected it more if they had her show some, sexual frustration, because she is being very patient and yet he's still walking away. And while it is something that needs to be handled gently, it's also like homegirl wants a parade and they keep on raining it out. It is no good. In terms of Leah, it was, I will say that interaction on that little parking ramp skyway thing, it was harsh, but it was also the second hashing of it. I think, and I've had to, I think we've all experienced this, where you try the soft touch the first time, but that doesn't drive the point home as much as you need it to. So then you kind of have to blunt things up, and that can come off, and things can come off the wrong way. When they first talked about it and he told her that he loved her, she did say, just like Kylie, you said, she has a commitment issues in general. She said, I'm a challenge for anyone, then there's everything that you have to deal with. And I can see why some people might be offended by that notion, but just like brass tacks being what they are with his character, we know that there are things that he's not good at handling. She is anticipating being something that he wouldn't be able to handle and not wanting to deal with that. He then tries the approach of like, no, I'm gonna fix it. Like, whatever the problem is, I'm gonna fix it. There's nothing I can't fix. I'm gonna fix everything. At which point she snaps. And I don't think in that moment she was saying, I can't love you because you're autistic. I think that was an oversimplified way of saying all of the ways that, or even just some of the ways that the autism manifests in your personality will make me fail you. And I don't want to do that.
I agree completely.
I agree with that 100%.
I buy what you're telling me, I guess, in my instant reaction to the moment. Because, yeah, I agree, Mike. It was totally, she was trying the soft touch and Sean wasn't picking it up because he was determined at that point. I know I love her. I know I have to get her to love me. And if she can't love me, I'm going to try to fix it so she does. I get all of that. It just, I don't know. The Leah Sean conversations have always had this sort of push and pull where it goes from a soft to a hard, soft to a hard. She's able to convey, and in the moment, I guess, maybe you're right. It's about saying something stupid in the moment. It took me. It actually made me shocked when I watched it. Like,
yeah,
I can't
me
believe
too.
She said that.
It took my breath away.
Yeah, and I felt because of that, the payoff in the finale for me wasn't as sweet as it could have been if they had maybe left that off. Because by the time she decided that, oh yes, I do love you so much from the bottom of my heart, I was like, oh, but you had this whole thing, and then you wish-washed while he was and you were listening on the walkie-talkie, and he was gonna die, and I just, I don't know.
Is it wrong that was my least favorite part of the finale?
Which part?
Yes.
The part you're talking about, like the whole Leah and Sean, like, I thought it was...
Jared thinks you're wrong, but I don't think you're necessarily wrong. So
my favorite part of the finale was Park, just so we all know.
I'm just messing with you. Everybody's going to take it different.
Yeah, even with Neil's death and everything, Park crushed that whole finale. That was his show. I will say I'll give you the, sunrise kiss. It rings to a little too much of the golden bedroom scene from Return of the King, which I think is the worst scene in cinema history. Feel free, we can have that conversation after hours. It's so bad. But
it's like 30 seconds. Come on.
For me, I don't think it was just like, oh no, I thought he was going to die. He thought I was going to die. I mean, first of all, that will put things into perspective for you and get you over your bullcrap.
Sure.
But also his monologue, I think it was before the water was rising super, super fast. She makes me more. I was like, if you're listening to someone say that about you and there's any spark in you of love for them, that's going to do it. That's a full tank of gasoline dumped on that fire. That was a good speech.
Yeah, goodness, you guys jumped ahead so quickly. I want to go back to just one thing real quickly. I want to just say that in regards to what you were saying, Kylie, in terms of how everything kind of builds with Sean, I feel like throughout the whole season so far, the whole show so far, it seems like most of the time when Sean struggles with something, it almost always ends up in this scenario where people try. They try and they try and they try and they try until all of a sudden you have to say something that makes him go wild about it. So I think we've seen it before, but definitely it was hurtful. I wanted to just mention that really quick because I feel like I was used to it at that point. Not that it's good at all, but I was used to the fact that this is what he typically, the kind of conversations that he has with people and his struggles there.
Counterpoint.
But I was joking around with you, Eddie, there about the ending. I was already crying at that point. I feel like the last two episodes for me were the best, and we're right up there with some of the Grey's Anatomy huge ones, just because I feel like all the stories were really, really well done in those two episodes, and just the fact that I've been rooting for Leah and Sean for so long, and understanding that the angst or the building, the whole story leading up to them coming back together again. I could feel myself like having a hard time breathing. And all of a sudden, when it happened, it was like this big release and I could breathe again. And my wife, like I said in the past, my wife looked at me and she was like, "You're crazy. This is just a television show." I was so excited when that happened because it's what I wanted the whole season. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get it. So when I did, I was relieved.
It is sacrilegious talk here at Couch Potatoes Unite. It's not just a TV show.
Oh, yes.
Well, there's that. Before we get too far down the finale thing, though, I'm going to counterpoint you, Jared. You're absolutely right that Sean has this pattern of doesn't get the soft touch, doesn't get the gentle approach, and then something along the way is much harder and it jars him into whatever progress or evolution he has to do to cope with the scenario. The problem is that's not true of his relationship with Leah up until this point.
Okay, yes, you're right. I agree with you, and it's too bad that it got to that place, but you're exactly right.
But
I don't think that blow up was for Sean. I think that blow up was for Leah. I think Leah needed that. And I think Leah was like, "Oh crap, I'm like Sean too." And I think that's where she had a realization of like, I could date this man. I can do this.
Are you talking about what blow up part are you talking about, Eddie?
I'm talking about the blow up part before the earthquake.
The one on the skywalk?
Yeah.
The car.
Oh, do you mean the parking garage?
I'm talking about the parking garage.
Yes.
Because that was also some deep meat dialogue.
I'm talking about the parking garage. That's where, for me, is where Leah started going, "Oh crap, this man actually loves me. I should do something about this or he's going to get hurt."
Yeah, and it's interesting how Sean is so observant of everything around him, and then whenever he sees something or he hears something that somebody else says, he decides he's going to try that himself. Like the whole idea that, like the girl that smashed the guy that was cheating with the two girls and smashed his car in, and he said, maybe this will work for me. And he tried, and it showed his true love, the fact that he didn't actually bash her car in, but he still had these emotions that were so intense and so upset that it caused him to humanly spit and blurt everything out. But that was crazy. Like, I could hardly breathe by the end of that thing because I was like, what in the world is going on here? Obviously, this is intense, and I don't know how to handle it. And I wonder what's going to happen now.
Full credit to that actress. After Sean says you're a superficial and selfish or whatever horrible person and leaves, she made a noise that as an actor, I don't even begin to understand how to duplicate. It was like her heart strangled and died at the same. It was just phenomenal. And also I was glad that Sean finally got to because he had multiple meltdowns this season, which I think were used in very realistic and valuable ways. This was, I even struggled with the ableism of oh, this is a real person, but it was just full cathartic venting that he doesn't usually do. He will internalize almost all of his complaints with something unless they're directly annoying him. This was him fully just letting loose for once. Because
Leah makes him more. That's why he's able to do it.
And remember, it's the things that mean the most to him that cause him to blow up. Like when they wanted him not to be a surgeon. It's those things that meant the most to him that he wanted to stand up for.
I am a surgeon. I am a surgeon. It rings in my head. It rings in my head. The things that mean the most to him were the things that he got the most intense about because he doesn't know what else to do other than just say, this is the truth. This is how I feel. Listen to me, you know?
I definitely agree with that assessment. It was her side of the equation that I had a little struggle with. So that by the time we did hit that end point in the finale, I was like, yes, his monologue underground was amazing. And yes, it was very romantic. And yes, if she had a heart at all, there should have been something. I just wish I felt all the butterflies when they kissed. And I didn't really feel the butterflies when they kissed because I believe she loves him. I just wasn't feeling that rush of romantic passion all of a sudden, I guess.
I sure did. I wanted to kiss her.
Well, that is something a little different.
One thing to note, every time Sean and Carly were kissing, it was very in and out, quick, a lot of small kisses, which is fine. But with Leah, the kisses are long and held. And
That's
I mean,
true.
even just the moment in Wyoming that, sorry, Jess, we got to go to that episode because unfortunately it was extremely important to the show.
It's okay. It's okay. I have comfort stuffed animals. I'm good. We can go there.
Yeah, when Sean is having the meltdown, which is one of the few meltdowns we've seen him have in private. It's generally always there's some other stimulus. This was fully something from inside manifesting out, and she just came in and just grabbed him. No flinch, no fight, no nothing. That was like, I mean, dramatic irony. We knew it before he knew it. Carly knew it as soon as she heard about it. Like, that's his person. To steal more phrases from the good old Grey's Anatomy.
I guess so. And to that end, even though that episode was emotionally raw and very tough, I personally resonated a little bit with it because I've also lost a parent, not the same way. That one was my favorite episode.
I agree.
Because it was that one, if you want to talk about the realness of things, that episode was full of the realness of things. And every moment was earned. It was organic. It felt real to Sean and Aaron, Sean and Leah, Leah and Aaron. You got a little bit of the hospital meanwhile in San Jose. Didn't really care so much about that. But everything going on in Wyoming was it felt like such a payoff, not only from what we knew of his backstory, but also just in terms of that organic growth of Leah and Sean and the family unit of the three of them.
My favorite scene actually from that episode is when his mom comes into the diner and he gives her, it's almost like he gives her permission to talk to him. And I love how she doesn't know how to say sorry. And the only reason she doesn't know how to say sorry, she doesn't know how to say sorry in Sean's way. And like then how Sean accepts it and he's fine and he goes back and he sits down and it's almost like she was a mother and she didn't know how to be a mother and Sean knew that she was trying to be like, you need to see your dad before he dies, no matter how it goes.
It's important to note that Sean accepted it by letting her hug him.
Yeah.
And it was insane. Like I'm pretty sure I was crying this whole entire episode. It was powerful.
Yeah.
Sean's autism is obviously the through line for a lot of the show. I think the biggest difference and what they kind of, I think, had been trying to do in season 2 didn't really work out, but maybe right at the finale there. In the first 2 seasons, we like whether or not he had been to med school and done all this and done all that, he was still very childish, not because of any behavioral anything, just because you're new in the world. This is how the world works. This is how interpersonal relationships and who you become in relationship to your parents they're not the monoliths that they used to be, if they did used to be, which as we've seen with these characters, a lot of their parents were not monoliths. But in this season, we see him becoming the man that he's going to be. And a pretty good one.
I like how this season starts showing that Sean doesn't have to change for other people. Other people have to change for Sean. Mm-hmm. And Sean,
but not like have to.
They don't have to, but it's not. I like how Sean's finally getting to the point where he's like, I don't have to change who I am to have people in my life. Like I
would use adapt too. Like I feel like they wanted him to adapt to them, whereas now they're adapting to what Sean needs.
Which for, the grander topic of ableism in any workplace, that's kind of the point, is that we can't just keep expecting these people, whatever the disability may be, to either adapt to the way we do things or omit themselves from it. Like there's work that we can do as well.
I just have to say that I did not see coming, and I don't know about you guys, but I did not see coming what happened at the end there with his father. Honestly, there was a part of me that hoped that there would have been at least a little bit of closure in regards to was this guy truly what Sean felt and believed that he was? Had he changed? Had he grown? And then the idea that we don't really know for sure, and I think I can fairly assume that it probably was his sickness that kicked in at the end there. People might have a difference of opinion, but the way he spoke to Sean at the very end, I felt it was such a weird thing because I was like, it took me by such a surprise. I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? This is going to happen now? He's going to start saying this after trying so hard the whole time of communicating that he realized he was wrong. And then now, of course, Sean isn't going to quite understand what happened. He may not even be able to accept the fact that this was just something mentally, and maybe the apology was real, but just that was such a big part for me. I come from a history where I have a stepfather that was very similar to this other guy in a lot of ways, and so I understood kind of completely about kind of how he was feeling. But to be able to get that kind of those kind words and then have it ripped out again like that, wow, it's just, I don't even know what to put into words about that.
I don't think they did it as in like those kind words then to have it ripped. I think the reason Sean blew up with those kind words is he knew it wasn't true. And I think he really wanted from his father what he really thought about him, because Sean knew that's what he thought about him and how he felt.
I'm going to disagree.
Yeah, I don't know if he could have not possibly changed. I think people can change.
I know, Jess, you got your hand raised. I'm jumping in.
You go. I'll go after you.
All right. I think what you got with Sean's dad is a 50-50 split. I think that what we saw in his childhood never really left. I think he was capable of some growth, but in much the same way that we talked about Sean's near death underground, adding perspective to Leah's feelings for Sean's dad's he knew he was dying, and so part of this was to make amends, which people will do. But then I actually loved the fact, because the mom says it's the morphine or something, it's the pain medication, and pancreatic cancer is probably going to cause a lot of pain, and morphine is a very powerful pain medication. My interpretation of that moment was both things were true. He never really lost what he thought of Sean from those earlier times, per se. It's not like he magically just extricated them from his heart. But on a conscious level, he could still be proud of Sean, and he could still try to think, as a dying man, I want to leave this world with a little something better without having complete control over that moment. Jess, go ahead. So,
not to get personal, but my mom had pancreatic cancer, and as soon as I knew that that's what his dad had, I knew that it wasn't going to be like we get to see the growth of his dad. I was like, no, his dad's going to be gone, which is why I called Micah and was like, do I have to watch this episode? Do I have to live this right now?
He gave her the cliff notes.
He did. And the recaps helped a lot too. Like, I was able to watch the recaps. That was fine. However, I agree with Kylie. Like, I think he wanted to be proud of Sean in the moment, but those memories are still there. And not to get like medically, but if his cancer had metastasized to his brain, pulling it away like that is 100% what a pancreatic cancer patient would do, because it's in their brain, it's pushing on the different lobes. Not saying that every pancreatic cancer patient is like that, but I've seen it. I saw it with my mom. I saw it with a cousin with brain cancer. So I feel like as much as we wanted it to all be true, it was also portrayed very truthfully as to how a cancer patient is on their deathbed.
Also, to look at it from the outside, that's good drama. Like, the peaceful passing, nice, not ratings. Horrible note that leads to a meltdown, which gives us the Leah moment, which then spirals into the Carly. It's the writing. They needed it to happen. And whether it was their intention or not, the first conversation with his dad did feel easy to me. It was just all a little bit too hunky-dory. And if that's just a byproduct of the writing, or if it was the intentional way of them kind of feeding in what you all were talking about of the dad. Maybe that was the dad. Maybe it was his bad right, or himself. Because that's the thing. Finishing up loose ends and unfinished business is not always for the benefit of those we have the business with. Sometimes it's to balance our own accounts, and you just want to check off the box, even if it's not in a forthright way.
Also, I don't know if this was brought up because the cancer stuff, I'm not going to lie, I kind of like zoned out for a second just because it's hard. I'll be truthful with y'all right now. It's hard. The rawness in Sean's breakdown, though, for me personally, watching it, like, I think part of him wanted his dad to change and be proud of him, but then the meltdown happened. Like, watching that scene in the recaps made me cry, which is why I'm really glad I got the Cliff Notes version, because I wouldn't have been able to live that. But just the realness. Oh, God. Feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and Sean, that's important to note because Sean never really... When Sean was listening to his dad trying to make amends, and Micah said, it sounded a little too something, I think they wrote it deliberately that way because the character of the dad was trying to perhaps convince himself as much as he was trying to convince Sean that he felt all of these things. But Sean wasn't convinced at first, remember? I mean, he railed at first. It was like, you're not a nice man. You hurt my rabbit. You killed my brother. All of this stuff happened. I can't forgive you, and walked out. And so it took that scene in the diner that Eddie mentioned earlier before he would even consider coming back and giving it another try. And that's what I think is important, is that, we're kind of talking about where it started was, Jared, you felt a little like, they kind of ripped that away, but death is messy, grief is messy, this disease is messy, the way that they depicted the abuse of this man, of the two boys, I mean, it was abuse, whether it was physical or otherwise, and there's a lot wrapped up into that one episode. It almost felt like a climax of sorts, even though it wasn't. It was on its way to a different climax of the previous 2.5 seasons. So I like the fact that it's left ambiguous and that you don't know for sure what Dad was really feeling. But I also feel strongly that both can be true, and both were true, just depending upon the lobes that might have been affected, if it was metastatic and that kind of thing.
Also, yeah, he did throw that rabbit against the wall.
He did kill the rabbit.
He's not a good man.
It's a little bunny, bro.
And he did
Thumper
endanger
ever
the
do
brother.
to you?
Maybe don't call it Thumper, Jess.
Yeah, that just came out. It's fine.
No.
Maybe don't name the rabbit after the last noise it ever made.
No.
I was going with Bambi, but okay.
Oh my. Yeah, I know.
What is happening?
I get the reference. Once again, don't name the rabbit that was thrown against the wall Thumper. It's no good.
Disney's gonna come after us. The crap's gonna hit the fan. Jerry, did you want to say something?
I think that the Wyoming episodes was obviously also, I think, the beginning of the subtle things that were showing us that Carly and Sean may not end up together after all. With, I mean, the fact that he could go on the whole trip without responding to any of her text messages. Yeah, I mean, the writing started to go on the wall at that point. I think not doing the text messages, and then Leah coming in, and it just began to come more and more at that point. I think.
Yeah.
Leah's got a good track record with motels. Every time they stay at a motel, their relationship goes up 18 steps.
Well, and Leah's holding, I guess, or embracing of Sean, that felt more satisfying than the ending moment we've previously referred to, just because it felt genuine. It felt like it was born naturally out of what came before. So I have.
Speaking of holding, I like that Carly and Sean. Wow. Sorry, it's been a day. That Carly and Sean actually hugged. Like, he hugged her. And one of the things, I don't know why, that stuck with me was when he was like, "I love you, Carly, but I love everyone." Or what? Or was it? But I love
Leah more.
I love Leah more.
He definitely doesn't love everyone.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a second, Jess, you done did mess up. Are you kidding? He loves #medical kitty.
Sean and Morgan, 20.
Sean and Morgan. But there was just something about that line where, he's admitting, yes, I do love you, but I love her more. And then they hugged, a real hug. And I just was like, even though I was team Leah and Sean, this is still beautiful.
And it showed Carly's character. Carly's character was so, that just showed how great character that Carly had to be able to acknowledge that and handle it as well as she did.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Carly,
I was going to ask.
I was just going to say,
Kylie, for your payoff issues, do you think it would have been better if, obviously they were still going to end up together, but if just that episode had ended in not a kiss? Because the whole kiss at the end of the big romantic climax thing, that's kind of. It's a very regular trope, and they do not have a regular relationship. So I would I would posit that maybe if it had been just like a holding hands, walk off into the morning, or just some other kind of, just anything beyond the pretty standard throwaway $5 writing. Put a quarter in the writing machine and it'll pop out. They kiss at the end. Do you think that would have helped?
I really wish she would have leaned in for a kiss and he would have just hugged her.
Ooh, yeah.
Or
like,
she didn't even have to give her heartfelt, like, yes, I absolutely from the bottom of my heart totally and completely am in love with you. That felt like bleh. But if she had just walked up and, hugged or held hands, that might have been a better moment. Yeah, just because it would have been in keeping with a natural evolution of what we've already come and seen from them before.
But his love really didn't leave. He was upset, but I feel like his love didn't leave, so it was that much easier, because that's really what he wanted. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It could have left a little bit of mystery, which may have been something that more people appreciated, I guess.
Better cliffhanger. Nobody would have suggested his love left. His love will never leave. He's stuck on Leah for life. That's numeral 4, LYFE. Leah for life. No one questions that. It was
Hashtag Leah for life.
Right, exactly.
Why does that sound like an AOL screen name?
Hashtags. I'm tired of hashtags.
I know. Hashtag and AOL screen name doesn't work, but we'll work on it.
We'll work. You know, I'm out of quips for the night, I guess.
All right. But no, I think you're right, Micah. Maybe because and Jared obviously is very excited about it, and I'm not like trying to undercut that in any one shape or form.
Good.
It's just, I think if they had dialed it back, restrained just a little bit. There's a season 4, a season 5 is about to start. They had plenty of time. I think it would have been maybe a better ending and felt a little bit more whole. I think you're right.
It did seem a little rushed. I will agree that it could have been a little more cliffhangy.
I don't think
it
was
fair.
It just didn't seem natural. I don't
see, Eddie. I think you know what I think better than I know, because that's exactly it.
Just
Don't give him that power.
I went to school to learn how to do that.
Listen, been a long day.
Most importantly, Micah just said, don't give him that power. You know, we have hardly discussed, and we must discuss before we get to the season finale, the other love triangle that, while there's also another relationship we have to touch on because I have complaints, but the other love triangle of this season, which turns out to be not quite a love triangle, but sort of, but like, you know, a mature one, but like not romantical, but sort of platonic. It's just a very,
Is anybody on the edge of your seat trying to figure out which?
I know, it's complicated. It's adults.
I'm picking up what she's putting down. I know exactly where she's going right now.
It is Neil Melendez, first with Audrey, then not quite with Claire, but something that they had teased in a previous season, which they decided to scoop back up again when Claire was at her lowest point post her mom's passing. And this is because Audrey was made chief of surgery when Marcus stepped down as interim president, and then they fired Daniel Day Kim. There was a whole thing about Daniel Day Kim. He was there, he was not. They needed chief of surgery. They gave the job to her. They were in a relationship. It was compromising both of their objectivity, so she decides to end it. But then in the meantime, we got this silent, subtle, burning flirtation, sexual tension between Claire and Neil.
I don't think it's as subtle as all that.
And Eddie, okay, I was just going to say, it's the Jess and Eddie show, and maybe it's not that subtle, but I was being slightly sarcastic. Micah, go.
So what I'm going to say...
Go ahead.
I'm going to say it. I kind of... Okay, and this is my opinion, and it might be an unpopular opinion, but today I really don't care. Here's my timeline of how I feel about... I am hashtag medical kitty. Deal with it. Anyways. I'm so over it.
That means one of these days.
Anyways, Glee, you'll
so
get it.
I think...
Soft kitty.
That's Big Bang Theory. When we will get to our Big Bang Theory podcast, we'll do the song. Okay, go.
Okay, so I feel like the relationships kind of like flipped-flopped. So like Lim and Melendez started off as like this flirtation relationship, like whatever. And then I feel like they worked better as friends in the end. Because I feel like that's where they were working towards, was like a friendship. And then I feel like Claire and Melendez started us off as friends. And then, because, like, they were running buddies. I know it was, like, teased that they were, like, flirting, whatever. But I do feel like it was a genuine friendship. And then the scene in the bed when they tell each other that they love each other, I was like, y'all just killed true love, and I'm over it.
Wow.
I feel like the Lynn Melendez relationship at the end where she cut it off, I feel like either, I don't know if I feel like it was a little bit forced at the end there, or even if it was necessarily realistic. I mean, I'm sure that there are people out there that would have just said, okay, obviously this is a problem, so we're going to end it. I guess it does show some good character, and I think some people would do that. I don't know. It felt a little bit overly forced to me, and not so much real life, but maybe it should be. I don't know, in terms of their relationship. I still, at the end of it, I didn't feel like I knew exactly where Neil and Claire stood. Like, I mean, they were going in this direction, and certainly Claire acted as if this was, real kind of thing. I wasn't sure how I felt at the end. Yeah, they said I love you, and maybe that meant that they really did love each other that much, but to be honest with you, the whole thing of Neil dying, there was so much, I feel like there was so much missing. It happened so quickly that there was I feel like there's a build-up that was missing there or something. It just all happened too quickly, which in real life, things like this happen and people die like that so quickly anyway. So it is real, but at the same time, for a television show, I wish it could have somehow been extended at least a little bit to fill in some gaps, I guess.
See, we're talking, so you talked about the realness of Leah and Sean. To me, what felt more real, now I will agree with Micah that the singular best moment or character arc of the finale was Alex Parks. I do agree with that. However,
that part killed me.
I didn't cry at any other part but that part. But
And that boy was a really good actor.
He was awesome. Claire and Neil, so what they were showing was a very, very slow burn, and it was a very, very genuine love. It wasn't necessarily a sexual motivation right away. It was a true, like, I love you as a person kind of love, which may have one day become the other thing. That was in progress. But as you noted, in the finale, there was an earthquake. It's California. Those things happen all the time and without too much warning. And then things with Neil rapidly descended, and we'll talk about that in a moment because I got feelings. But what was true about that, how that worked, is that, yeah, things happen like that. Things are going good. She's getting righted on the ship. He's supporting her dating the widow of her friend who ended up passing away. All of this stuff is happening. They're cheering each other on while secretly harboring true love feelings for each other. A, totes relatable, might be going through something similar right now myself, and B, also just, maybe we'll edit that out, and also B, it just, to me, that felt very real. Like, yes, that's what happens. It's a little tropey as well, but they executed that one very beautifully because it was very simple and very sweet.
Okay.
Things to consider. Oh, no. Sorry. No, you haven't talked in a while, Eddie. You go.
Thank you. So, my girl, Claire, first of all, I think the whole Melendez relationship sparked when he realized that Claire had hit rock bottom. And I'm talking about the patient that she wound up sleeping with, and then she wound up having to do surgery on, and then he wound up having a wife, and it literally slapped her in the face, and she wound up having to be professional. And Melendez really knew something was there, and then we found out, like the whole hospital found out when she got slapped. I genuinely think the reason she started falling for him is she's never had a parent figure who has come to her rescue.
That's slightly Freudian, and I don't know that I'm along with you.
Hold on.
Okay.
Potential.
I looked at it as in, like, she hasn't been loved and, like, comforted, not by a parent. Yeah, she has friends in the residence, but, they cut her down because they're all competing. And then this person comes in who's authority, like a parent, and I guess somebody finally shows her genuine love. And I love how they didn't make it where she was instantly attracted to him. They found out, he tried genuinely showing her how to get rid of stress and how to not do the things that she didn't want to do. And that was them running, and they shared it mutually together.
Counterpoint. They flirted earlier in that season, in that episode, after they had that whole, you're discriminating against me because my sex, and the nurses jumped on it with her, and they were like fighting in the OR, and then after, when they apologized, there was this whole tete-a-tete and little banter stuff, and they planted that seed a long time ago. Now I agree that the seed was watered with the rock bottom and the slap, but I also think there was a mutual give and take there. Yes, I think you're right in the analysis that she's being given kind of a nurturing love that she hadn't been given before, but at the same time, I think for him, so he had just gotten out of 2 relationships. His ex-wife, the former, whatever her security risk analysis, whatever she was, person.
Log in general.
Yeah, exactly. Peace out. I didn't like her anyway. And then Audrey, they're both very high-ranking women in the hospital, both very, in some ways, type A. Audrey's probably a little more of an F than a T, and the blonde woman was a little more of a T than an F in the Myers-Briggs indicator. But for all intents and purposes, they followed a type for him. Claire was very much the counter type. And a swing, and probably something that he needed in the moment as well. So yes, I agree with you on one hand, but I do think they teased it earlier, and I think they yanked it into this place because the 2 of them were both struggling. That's why when she's crying in the stairwell and you see the legs come down and it's just on the legs, I knew instantly it was Neil. Mm-hmm. It was not even a question in my mind that it was Neil because it had been teased already.
I may.
I just want to say, who wouldn't be attracted to Melendez when you first see him?
I have feelings. This is for the finale part, Micah.
I think I have 3 things. It might be 4. Sometimes the bullet points aren't separate yet in my head, but I'll try to be concise. Jumping back to Jared's thing about Audrey and Neil's breakup feeling forced, I disagree fully. There was groundwork for it in season 2, and also it was like 3 episodes in a row, 3 cases in a row where this became an issue, and then you get into your own head of like, are we being biased, or by not being biased, are we then being biased? And then I think that was earned. They did a good job of earning things this season. In terms, we stand together, whether corrected or not. So my podcast brother there.
Can I interject real quick before you get to point 2? The funniest part about that was when they had to go secret in their relationship again, and the HR lady was, I know you say you're not in a relationship, but I pretty much think you are in a relationship, and so therefore, this is what I'm going to tell you. Okay, continue.
I can't prove anything, but just to let you know, you are in for a world of pain.
Yes.
I talk like this all the time. My job is so much fun. I'm kidding. It was not Ben Stein. That woman did a good job as well. Second thing, Kylie is absolutely right. I was going to bring that up. He had already been in a relationship with a high-level person in the organization. High-level person in the organization who became his superior in the organization. He probably wasn't rushing to get into an official relationship with his literal direct subordinate, especially after all the headbutting they had done in season 2. So I think that was why he kept his love under wraps, more or less. I think that the mentor... So it's not 4, this is 2-B. I think that the mentor aspect to their relationship is what made her want to hold hers back. I don't think that their love was, or that her love for him was like missing parental figure. And I guess that's what my final thing was, is that for me, while they didn't use any physicality or any of the normal like doctor show sex time vibe that most shows do, I don't think it was any kind of like other kind of love than true romantic love. They had a very long journey together in terms of viewing each other as equals. The fact that they established the running together as a thing, you don't run a few times a week when you're using it as like a coping mechanism. It's implied that whatever the timeline of this season was, they were running together every single day. That's plenty of time for these things to develop. Whether or not we as audience members appreciate it is each of our own individual choices. I personally do appreciate it. I think that once again, I think they did a good job of earning a lot of stuff. And yeah, also, the point of a sucker punch with his death is, it's not a sucker punch unless A, you don't see it coming, and B, they were physically there to punch you. Those are the two big ingredients for a sucker punch. So when he first, I was watching it for the second time and he says, no, I just bumped my head and I have some bruising. I was like, bruising? That's it. The bruising is people at home, you can't see. I just got very, very close to my camera. To everyone's delight. But yeah, I think that groundwork was there, and it was also the Neilist thing to do. Doctors make the worst patients. He said that earlier in the season, and then he downplayed all of his symptoms until it was too late.
So, is this the segue? Do I have feelings now?
Yes, we can have feelings together, Kylie.
Okay. The one character that I have consistently loved since the season premiere, other than Sean, is Neil Melendez. Because why? He is hot. See, every show that I have,
because he is hot.
Every show that I watch, that I most of the shows that I watch, okay, this is the Spanish Inquisition. A lot of the shows that I watch are gonna have
interrogating yourself.
I know are gonna have at least one hot quotient of my preference, which is the male preference.
That.
Yeah, I know.
Heard that.
Right. So there you go. And Neil was that guy. Okay, now it's not to say that the others aren't attractive in their own ways, but Neil was that guy. Okay?
I don't know, Park's pretty attractive.
He's pretty attractive. Okay, yes, he is. But see, I have previous experience with Park because he was Takeshi Kovacs on Altered Carbon, and I didn't have romantical feelings for that form of Takeshi Kovacs. I had romantical feelings for the Joel Kinnaman version.
See, that's it. That show in general is just too literally meaty for it's hard to get sex appeal in there, man. It's too many flesh bags, literally.
Changing bodies. The brain goes weird. Altered Carbon. If you want a literal mind, you know what? Watch Altered Carbon. But
so if you want to have some mind lunch.
With no parade to follow.
No parade.
I think the season 2 parade is a little bit better than the season 1 parade, but that's just me. Kylie, important question. Is Neil Melendez, is he going to make your list?
He's not going to make the list, but he...
Okay.
But I do appreciate the character. Are you talking about the 5, the 25? What list are we talking about?
There's a list?
I'm talking about the Jensen Ackles Elijah from the originals list.
He's not a 5. He's not a 5.
Oh, man.
He's not...
Second string for Melendez.
Sorry. He can't, I mean, those other men have earned their stripes to be... They're on the laminated card. I don't know what else to tell you, but Neil Melendez was my guy from The Good Doctor, and now I don't know who's going to be that person. I also loved how the character related.
I'm just gonna say you'll find him. That's all I'm gonna say.
That is some
There's
bold
hope, Kylie.
words.
There's hope.
That is some bold words, but okay.
I'm trying to remember who else is season 4.
You better not.
Hashtag no spoilers.
Yeah, that also.
Spoiler.
It's a teaser, not a spoiler, to be fair.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
But
hashtag teasers allowed?
Teasers are allowed. But Neil, not just was he attractive, okay, but also I love the way the character related to all of the other characters. He was kind of the grounding central force, him and Audrey really, but I like the way he approached all the different residents and had different relationships with them, and I like the fact that he was kind of the first of the surgical team, the actual professional surgical team, to kind of wake up to the fact that Sean was awesome and stuff. And yeah, I'm real sad about the fact that he, spoiler, dies because of his
liked his
earthquake
soft
injuries.
side.
He has a wonderful soft side.
Like when he went and saw his sister.
Let's not bring that up.
But I had to because that was the moment when it sealed the deal for me and Melendez. And I just thing. I don't want to hear the thing. Is it going to make me angry?
A trope that I really am starting to when I'm trying to be a woke and conscious person, a trope in TV that I'm really starting to disrespect is the Episode drama. Unpredictable reasons why this person was on the side of the protagonist during this thing. Episode drama. Climax. Epilogue scene where the character goes to visit someone in some facility that shares the thing that caused the episode drama. Sue Sylvester had a sister with Down syndrome, and that became a thing. Didn't Morgan visit a grandpa in this season? Somebody visited like an old person.
It was Morgan.
In a
she
home.
went and saw her grandpa.
Yeah, she went and visited her grandpa. Neil went and visited his sister. Stop putting like heartstring tug non-neurotypical or physiotypical people in these storage box facilities, which yes, they're good, they help people live, as an episode plot. Like, if you're gonna bring that person in, I want to see 5 visits in the season, or don't do it at all.
Okay, but
I think that's disrespectful.
Then I will stop FaceTiming my dad at least once a week to make sure that he's okay, because I can't see my dad because he could possibly die from COVID.
Hey, once a week? That's many, many times a season. You're good, Eddie.
I'm just saying, it just shows how real.
I agree.
Just shows realness.
I didn't mean to cause any issues.
You're fine. It feels to me like they're trotting these characters out and then throwing them back in the "if I need it" box.
I will buy it in the sense that it became repetitive within this show. However, I will counterpoint that the Neil reveal explains what. Yes, I rhymed.
Hashtag Neil reveal.
Yep. Explains why Neil was the first of the attendings to say, yes, Sean can do this. And I did not mind that reveal. And I don't mind it being pocket knowledge that may or may not come back. Now, I will agree with you about Morgan's piece, only because Morgan had so much family this season. How much family did we really need? And the mom episode was better. But
Agreed.
I think that the Neil sister piece was important because it directly related to why his dynamic was a certain way with Sean.
It just made the mom's decision on how she had to help her son go into a home like that much more real, is that his family had to make the same decision.
Yeah. There was a lot loaded into that little epilogue scene, so I was all right with it.
That was my favorite episode of last season, actually.
Neil is attractive, again. So more of him is okay.
What I was trying to get at was it was just little moments like that with Neil that really kind of like sealed the deal for me. And then like the moment where it's between him and Claire's sitting on the bed and he's like, you're a shit bowler or whatever he says, and she just like starts crying. For some reason, like I was tearing up. I was like, I'm fine, I'm not gonna cry during this. When she like lays her head on his chest and he's like looking down at her and she's looking up at him, that was it. I was done and I was mad that they killed him.
Yeah.
That was the nail in the coffin, was that moment. I was like, why?
Yeah. Also, what was really powerful was her emerging from the room after he clearly had passed, and the first person she greets is Audrey, and
Audrey holds her.
Yes,
it wasn't a hug. That wasn't a hug. That was a hold.
It was amazing.
Corollary point to that.
It was very interesting that Claire was with him.
That's what I was gonna say.
I'm good at reading people's minds. I thought it was very powerful that Claire was with him when he died, and not Lim. Like it was very powerful.
Yeah.
On the other hand, though, romance aside, they knew each other longer than a lot of the other characters on the show. They were like the plot of this show was their life. They were the new residents that came in and they got the jobs at the hospital and they've been working there the entire time. So whether it was romance or just their long-term friendship and respectful colleagueship, that would be rough, but also Lim is sharp, so she knew what was up, and I think she knew that Claire was the one who needed to be in there.
I don't think Lim wanted to overstep in the fact of she still wanted to be professional, and she has other people that she has to take care of, and Lim is one of those people where she doesn't ever want to make herself emotional, and she always wants to be that person who's picking everybody else up. And as somebody in the medical field that has to do that, like putting yourself in those situations, and once you go down, you're down. And I think she knew she had to be strong for Claire and even the other residents, because of what was happening. I mean, it's hard to take care of a colleague. I've had to do it multiple times with this lovely thing that we have going around, and watching your colleagues die. It's hard. It's very hard.
I think you're both right. I think you're absolutely both right. I think it was half of everything you just said about Audrey. But I also think Mike is right. I think Audrey knew because she knew. Because she's the boss. Because she's more of an F in the ENT or in the Myers-Briggs spectrum, and because her relationship with Neil had ended. And if anyone, we already had the scene where Morgan was in her car and watched the two of them running past, and there was the favoritism complaint. Everybody knew about Claire and Neil. They just didn't openly talk about it.
I think everybody knew, but I genuinely don't think anybody thought it was romantic. I just think that Morgan did what she did because of just pure jealousy, that nobody can connect with her. But I do have to say, I'm sorry, I love how Park was the one who made sure that those two wouldn't hate each other, where he was like, I'm the one who said it. Because he knew that it was going to tear the team apart if he knew, and he knew who actually did it. So
I think everybody did know they had feelings for each other, because it's one of those things that is obvious. But I also agree that Morgan was jealous, because that's how Morgan is.
Morgan's jealous of everything because she's jealous that she can't have it, because she doesn't think she's capable of having it.
Well, and the one time she was close to having it, he died.
Right. That's point is made a couple of times.
That part during the mini pandemic, before the pandemic came along.
Yeah,
that's when I started to like her just a little bit more. You could see that she was more than just her selfish self.
Hashtag
also,
medical kitty.
Hashtag medical kitty showing that little boy her boobs.
Oh yes. Wow.
I died. I was like, you would, Morgan, you would.
I mean, he became blind, a happy man.
The smile on that boy's face, he was like,
she gives zero.
You're going to become blind.
She gives zero, you know what. So I don't mean to do a hard right here, but I need to take a moment to talk, or have us talk, about Debbie.
Yes.
If
Debbie exists, yes, that's a thing.
I'm going to mention two things, actually.
What I would like to say is that if I was going to have a least favorite character, she would be
Kylie, I have never agreed with you more.
I was going to say, but same.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's not just me, because I'm finding it, I on some level get Glassy's affection for her, but man, is she irritating. I just don't like her. Strongly.
To be fair, leading up to this, like, Glassy was the worst. Season 2, Glassy is the worst we ever. Everything about their relationship, he was just that was solved way before, like, they started in earnest. I think he was like, there was one episode in chemo. Still, like, it's just, I don't know. It was too tropey of like I'm the fragile old man, but I'm still going to have an ego about it. Like, realistically, no. The person will pick you up off the floor, whether you like it or not, and you will let them, because you don't want to be on the floor. I don't know. In their relationship, he irritates me more than her in her interactions with everybody else. Like, they're purposely writing her to not fit in with the rest of the show. That's a creator's disservice to that character. But also, like, what are you going to do if that's the role she has? You can't like her. You just can't.
I don't think she's a very good actress, and that is the reason why I don't. I mean, it isn't about the fact that he's irascible and an ego guy and whatever you just said, or the whole disagreement about the handgun piece or any of that. I find that particular actress to be a little on the weaker side. And so even though in some ways she's supposed to be the square peg, it actually ends up being, you can have a beloved, quirky, or at least you appreciate the square pegness of the square peg. Right now, I'm just like, are they going to divorce yet, or what's the deal? Because I'm waiting for it.
She's just dry to me.
She's dry. I'm not invested in anything she has to say. I'm not invested in any of their conversations, of which there are quite a few. And I honestly think part of that is because that actress struggles to have chemistry with Richard Schiff.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. Jared, you disagree, don't you?
No, actually, no. I definitely see what you're saying. I mean, I don't know if I can pinpoint how she could be considered a bad actress. That's maybe just my ignorance of some fine points or something. But I don't really disagree. I didn't like them together. I think that some of the disagreements that they were trying to show were, the types of disagreements that some couples would certainly have, and it's very real in that sense. I can see where you'd be a little annoyed, but yeah, I don't really disagree. I don't know what I feel. A little bit. I don't think I really feel anything about that. But one thing I will say is that I felt like I was going to mention that Dr. Andrews in this particular season, I really feel like we begin to see his softer side. Like there was this obvious shift when he came back on again, and this is where I start to see more and more of his wisdom, when he just looks, and that he's another one of those characters that everything shows on his face kind of thing. But I really started liking him in this season because he was coming back down to earth and trying to see the error of his own ways, I think. And so, yeah.
I agree with that.
I like how Andrews literally goes, "Oh wow, this is where I came from." I think that's when he went back to doing surgeries. It's like this is what made him get to where he was at before. And I think it's kind of one of those things where when you go into management, you forget what you love. And exactly. I think he forgot how much he loves doing surgeries. And he got to relate to the residents because he's like, I know exactly why you guys are here. And I agree with you, Jared. I also fell in love with Andrews in this season. He had a lot of genuine moments and a lot of teachable moments that were, I don't think he just aimed them at Sean like the show has done in the past. He aimed them at everybody. And I think he became a very good teacher.
Well, It's a shift between a guy who was really concerned with the excellence of their incoming doctors for the prestige of his surgical department and then his hospital at large, rather than I don't know anything about the medical education process, but it seems to me from the shows I've watched that the resident doctors, they are the ones or the attendings, they are the ones who are the most directly responsible for teaching the residents. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't, even though it's a teaching hospital, that wasn't his direct priority, and he had other responsibilities. With this one, we get to just get him back down to the brass tacks of being a good surgeon and teaching those two people. I also like that they got Glassy back in the game, because everything else is fine and cool, but it's a surgeon show. I want to see the surgeon surge. Surgerize.
Surgerize.
You want to see the surgeons drink surge while they surge?
Surgerate those surgeons.
The one thing I will add to what Micah just said, and building off of both Jared and Micah's point, is that my favorite part for Andrews this season was his ongoing difference of opinion with Audrey regarding how best to teach Sean. Where Marcus, Dr. Andrews, was tough love and let him make the mistakes so that he learns, whereas Audrey was sort of softballing him, preparing him for harder challenges with easier pitches so that he could work up to it. And I love the fact that both approaches could be valid, and in essence were valid by the time this season was done, because each approach motivated Sean in a different way and made him a better surgeon. It was an interesting thought experiment.
Also, it's weird too, because it was a very quick turnaround of being chief of surgery to then being the interim president and also chief of surgery. And then he had a new chief of surgery for about 5 minutes. And then it was Audrey, and now he works for her. So I've seen this in theater before when someone who was and this is, I'm not going to name names, this isn't about anyone personally, but when someone who was a stage manager is then crewing a show, and I'm Johnny Ding Dong singing the songs in the background for all the shows. That's I don't crew very much. But you can see on the person's face how they want to stage manage it differently than what is happening. But they're nope, I am simply deck crew. I will move these things the way I'm being told to. I think it was a similar vibe for Andrews of okay, you do it because it's your job, but it was my job. But it's your job, but it was my job.
Relatable content. Well, residents of Couch Potatoes Unite Bonaventure Hospital.
It It is a really long name for a hospital. Like,
That's
get something snappy.
Well, we'll work
New
on
Amsterdam, easy. Sacred Heart, boom, right off the tongue.
it. Okay.
Grace Stone.
We'll work on it. I can't help that they have that hospital name, and we'll work on our own. But we've talked about a lot of stuff because season 3 was 20 episodes of jam-packed emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take this opportunity to ask you before we do the famous Catching Up series ranking question, if there's anything we haven't covered that you want. Jessica's got bright eyes and pointy fingers.
Because I am a hopeless romantic who loves rom-coms and those kinds of things, I loved the episode where the 2 kids had cancer and they had a prom in the hospital. Yeah. And Melendez and Claire danced, and I just...
Oh yeah, in our discussion of like what's the nature of their relationship, they danced at a fake prom.
But
Totally
that was funny.
romantic.
That was funny because he said, "Do you want to dance with the prom king?" Because Claire didn't get prom because she was getting her mom out of the drunk tank.
So
So
there
no one
you
was
have
surprised
it.
when he
It
was prom king.
Yeah, there you have it. If you didn't pick up what they were putting down before, that fake prom should have clued you in.
But I just loved that episode. It was sad. Spoilers: the girl doesn't make it. And it's just emotional. Also, that mom was on Army Wives.
She's
I
been in
love
a few
her.
things. Yeah, she's been in a few
They had a lot of interesting patients this season.
Yeah. Rico from Hannah Montana was the kid with the drugs in his
He
stomach.
was.
Well, that's more information
was.
than I knew because I didn't watch Hannah Montana.
Have you seen 5 Feet Apart?
No.
Oh, I just figured because because Jughead's in it and you're on the Riverdale panel, so I thought maybe.
Yes, but the only 2 things that I have seen Cole Sprouse in are that
His friends.
and Friends. So
He's also in that movie too.
Okay.
But yeah, it had a lot of weird like cameos. Also, the one thing that bothers me, and I don't know why it bothers me, is why the guy who had 6 months to live and then all of a sudden got to live his whole life, did he go home? Did he stay at the bus stop? I was expecting the bus to pull away and his wife to be there. I need to know what happened.
I mean, not everybody gets the happy ending. The one dude jumped in front of a bus.
I know, but like,
Sometimes it's just sad and unresolved, and they have to go back into work the next day.
I was so angry that there was no real closure with Yellow Suit Man.
I think he would have
Yellows.
gone back to her personally.
yeah, I think he was.
I hope he did.
My belief, even though they left it open-ended, was that he was going to try to get his wife back.
Okay. I just like I don't know if it's like the 80s nostalgia, Pretty in Pink, where they pull away and he's there. Like, I was hoping the bus would pull away and his wife would be like standing on the other side of the sidewalk.
Not
Really like
everything can
rom-com.
be a John.
I do love rom-coms, don't judge me.
Not
Or you
everything can be a John Hughes movie.
But it's gotta be.
The radio outside our house and play blast the radio.
Say Anything, is that where we're going? Better song.
But yeah.
Better song and Say Anything than in Pretty in Pink. Just gonna say it.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Those were like the 2 things that I wanted to bring up that I just like, one I loved and one I was like, I didn't get the ending I wanted.
You know, I was alright with that.
He was a weird character though. Like, I loved
irritated
him.
me.
He
But I
irritated
didn't
me
love
as
him.
well. He irritated me as well. So when the end of that episode came around, I was like, he's gonna figure it out. I don't need to know what happens to him because
And if he doesn't,
oh well.
once again, he's irritated.
That's right. And
Not that I
don't-
want any of these people to die, but if the irritating one goes,
And he doesn't look good in yellow. And somebody
Part of
needs
me
to
knew
tell
he
him
wasn't
that.
going to die, though, because he was doing the whole spend my money on everything, playing all these elaborate scripts. Like, I didn't think the tumor was going to be, like, operable, but I thought he was going to have more time, and then he was going to be like, oh, well, I just blew everything. Nope, now you get to live the whole life knowing you bought a Ferrari, you went skydiving, you bought a yellow suit, you got a shot so you can go to where was it, Costa Rica?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you done did mess up.
Well, it was a perfectly understandable mess up, except that he was irritating and he drove his wife bonkers. And he's going to have to reckon with that situation,
In his tacky yellow suit.
which he does not look good in. Somebody's got to tell the man, I don't know where he bought that thing, but come on.
Good writer doctors, tell him he doesn't have good taste.
bring the character back just so we can get closure. on him acknowledging the suit was bad. I don't need to hear about what happened with his wife. As long as he said the words, that suit was bad.
The only thing that would have been worse is one of those powder blue tuxes from the 70s with like a ruffly ascot
Oh, like
shirt.
from Dumb and Dumber.
Sure, that one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although the ruffly creamsicle was also not a good.
Neither one.
Neither one.
Just to quickly rehash, I just wanted to say we talked about it a little bit before, but I was very pleasantly surprised when I discovered that Annette O'Toole was Morgan's mother, because I feel like she plays that part perfectly, and I think it goes so well with Morgan. I've always loved the way that she acted. It's hard to describe, but I think she was perfect for the role of Morgan's mother.
Except that every so often when she was on screen, all I wanted to do was, somebody save me! Because that's
all the real fans know what she's putting down.
Hashtag
True
Smallville
believers.
for life. Numeral 4 LYFE.
Members
Every
of the Wall
time
of
you
Weird.
spell life that way, I just think of tacky AOL screen names.
Wow.
Completely random note that signifies nothing. The actress that played the astronaut with the lung issue,
Yeah.
she was too beautiful for that role. Like, she's like, no, it was like when they first showed the lab and they showed Carly in the lab, you were just like, you're not a side character. And she wasn't. Like, there were bigger plans for Carly. That woman, I was just like, this isn't a bit part. Like, you're a new protagonist. Like, that's when I don't know. I was just like, you don't fit as just this random side character, which I guess beautiful people get surgery too, but still.
She's a random side character that was trying to go into space, so she gets an exception to
I
your
hope that her
formula.
shuttle launched in the first 3 months of 2020, which is when they said her space thing was for, because if not, she probably did not go to the moon.
There's no COVID on the moon. She would have been safe there.
We know of. Where did it come from in the first place?
Aliens have COVID.
Moon COVID.
Let's not go
Hashtag
there.
Moon COVID.
We're not doing
Hashtag
it.
no.
No. Not
Hashtag
even
seal the
hashtag.
deal and reveal the
handle
deal.
COVID anyway.
What? Hashtag, wait, what?
What is happening? Okay.
A while back when we were talking about, after I'd already said hashtag reveal the deal, Kylie then said seal the deal, and I was like, hashtag seal the deal on the Deal reveal. Let's do it.
This is going off the rails.
This is the best podcast.
My poor dog is even laughing at us, guys.
Dog laughs mean like 10 times
been
more.
with
That's
us.
awesome.
Okay, we're talking about the cute dog, so let's come back. Is there anything, before I ask you the famous catching up series ranking question, is there anything else you want to make sure we cover about season 3 that we haven't already discussed?
I just love Park's way of, like, twisting things around. Like, how he's, like, buy the nurses donuts.
Oh.
They'll like you better. Made Morgan think that he sent Lim a pillow, when really it was like brochure samples, so she would be a kiss ass and like go do stuff. Like,
He's very smart.
like the trickster without like being like the trickster, because it's a drama, so we can't really have that much comedy. But like, if we could, I feel like he would be the comedic relief.
He's the smooth operator. He is the smooth
Dry.
operator.
Dry, but yeah.
I like him. I like his energy. I like the fact that it balances out the 4 of them. I think they all have a very specific role in this little quadruplet of residents, and I love the fact that he brings maturity, the cop background, but also, that sneakiness, a little bit of manipulation. Not out and out like Morgan, but his own brand of...
Also, the fact that he pretended to be that boy's dad. I know we keep coming back to that, but that moment, I was like... And then when he calls and he keeps it together, and then he asks to talk to his son, and as soon as I think he says like, hi my boy, or hi son, or whatever, and as soon as those words come out, he breaks and loses it. I was like, this show did mess me up.
That was fine acting by Mr. Lee. He did a really good job.
Much.
I'm done adding my 2 cents. Those were the last of my cents. I am senseless now.
Very nice. Any other senses to add before I ask this question?
Sense8 podcast you should watch.
Okay, that is for the Sense8 podcast, which we've already done. Okay, so the answer to my previous question is not so much. So, now it is time, because we are in a catching up series. This is the wrap-up question for a catching up series. You must now rank the first 3 seasons in order, whatever order you want, least favorite to favorite or favorite to least favorite.
We'll go favorite to least.
Okay.
3, 1, 2.
Same.
What are you talking about? Favorites and same what?
I was going to say, that was a look of pure confusion.
Jared was not
Rank
paying attention. So your ranking.
Yeah, what are your favorite seasons of the 3 in order?
Yes.
3, 1, 2.
Which is what everybody else has said.
Okay, they said 3, 1, 2. I didn't hear a 3, 1, 2. Okay.
I'm gonna go. See, I don't remember. I don't. You don't peer pressure me. You can't peer pressure me. I'm a moderator.
One of us.
Well, what I was going to say was, I don't remember having strong feelings between 1 or 2. I don't know that I liked one better or worse. So I think what I would do is say 3 is my definite favorite, for sure. But 1 and 2 are kind of tied.
I think that inherently means that 2 was the lesser vehicle. Because as something progresses, it is meant to improve. If 2 only drew even with 1, then it failed in what it...
You cannot speak for me!
No, I'm just giving you input to help you make the choice.
Yes.
I'm going to go with my tie because I can. Because that's my power. All right.
It's my podcast.
I was just going to go with the power thing, but okay. At this time, other than what you have already said, is there anything else you wish to say about season 3 of The Good Doctor?
Neil reveal.
Fair enough.
Neil reveal.
I know, we have so many secret hashtags that we might as well stop now so we don't add to the list, because that's going to be some kind of hashtag.
If I only get one,
now,
it's hashtag seal the deal on the Neil reveal.
And if I get one, it's hashtag medical kitty.
I'm already aware of your hashtags. This list is going to be so long.
Hashtag hash browns.
Also fair. They go great with pancakes. As the characters.
About Smallville.
That's from... That is from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, where she says hash brown no filter, but that's for the Kimmy Schmidt podcast, which we've already done, and I think I need to end this here right now. So what I would like to do is thank, very laughingly, my co-panelists, Jessica, Jared, Eddie, and Micah, for joining me once again to talk about The Good Doctor, but never fear, listener, if you are a Good Doctor fan, we have one more episode in this catching up series. We have to talk about the most recent season 4, but not before we roll these magical credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, The Good Doctor is entirely available to stream on Hulu, ABC.com, and the associated app, and through video on demand at most other sites like YouTube TV for those who don't have Hulu. In the meantime, our Good Doctor panel will next reconvene very shortly, in fact, to talk Season 4 and the final episode 4 of our 4-part catch-up series, before the show converts to one of our regular water cooler panels. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned.
Bye-bye.